Welcome back. Well, a final peace agreement between Israel and the Palestinians is supposed to be signed by November this year. Well, this looks increasingly unlikely. Instead, Gaza faces a full-scale invasion. Israel is threatening to step up attacks as it masses troops and tanks on the Gaza border. As the death toll rises, Palestinians continue to press for reconciliation between Hamas and Fatah. The Mecca agreement saw the formation of a government of national unity, but of course that collapsed in May amid bitter street fighting. Now, Palestinians face not one unified Palestinian entity, but rather two separate Palestinian territories completely cut off from each other. Hamas-run Gaza and Fatah-dominated West Bank. Well, joining us again are our guests in Tel Aviv, Gideon Levy, a journalist with the Israeli newspaper Haaretz, and in London, Abdelbari Atwan, editor-in-chief of Al-Quds Al-Arabi newspaper. Thank you both for being with us. If I could start this time with Abdelbari Atwan. Will this incursion, this Israeli operation, unify the Hamas-Fatah split, or will it simply strengthen one party against the other?
To be honest, it wouldn't unify the leadership, but definitely it will unify the grassroots of the supporter of the two sides. We can see some sort of a strong national unity now in the grounds. You can see Fatah supporters are really dismayed what the Israelis are doing, and even they are dismayed with of the reaction of their own government in Ramallah.
Will that not then translate into grassroots pressure upon the Fatah leadership then?
Well, I believe Fatah leadership, Abbas in particular, is weakened by these Israeli incursions because it does expose them. Many people now are saying that the Israeli doing that, they are trying to crush Hamas in order to make Abbas go back to Gaza on the top of the Israeli tanks, exactly the way Ahmad al-Jalabi and Ayad Allawi went back to Iraq on the American tanks. And this doesn't play to the hands of Abbas and his authority. I think they are hugely embarrassed by these Israeli incursions, as the British saying, actually, with such friends who needs enemies, to be honest. I think Abbas is demoralized completely, and he's struggling now to gain some support or regain his followers inside the West Bank and inside Gaza Strip. So maybe afterward, Hamas will be definitely stronger and in stronger position, and they may actually force Abbas to talk to them again. We know that Abbas would like to step down as a president in the coming presidential election. They may reach some sort of solutions, especially the Arab countries are willing to help in this field. But I believe Hamas is stronger than it used to be before these incursions. I believe the Arab moderates are extremely embarrassed. The Saudi today issued very, very strong communique comparing the Israeli incursions like the Nazi crimes in Germany, so against the Jews. So I don't know what the Israeli Prime Minister is going to achieve by this kind of stupid policies, by these massacres, by these incursions. I think it will be extremely unproductive for him and for the American administration, and also for the moderate Arabs.
All right, interesting food for thought there, Gideon Levy. Can Israeli planners really be so unaware of the fact that this policy seems to be undermining support for Mahmoud Abbas? Wouldn't that be a serious concern for Israel?
It should be, but as you know, Sami, unfortunately, I'm not a member of the Israeli government, and I can't really see the logic. I can see the logic of doing something to stop the Qassams, but this something should have been trying to get to a ceasefire with the Hamas, which would have been also problematic from the point of view of Mahmoud Abbas, as you can imagine yourself. But then at least we could achieve ceasefire, and we could achieve maybe after this a unity government, a Palestinian unity government. But for this we have to be sure that... Do you see a point in time
where perhaps the Israeli government will engage Hamas in talks in its offer to discuss a long-term ceasefire?
First of all, they are having a kind of dialogue over the question of Gilad Shalit and the Palestinian prisoners. So this taboo was broken a long time ago. It's not a direct negotiation, but it is. I think what will happen will remind us of what was at its time with the PLO. Israel declared for decades that it's not going to negotiate with the PLO, and finally, much too late to my taste, they had negotiated with the PLO. I think same might be with the Hamas. And people like me say, why to wait? Why not to try now? I'm not sure that the Hamas will be willing to talk directly with Israel, but I'm sure the Hamas will consider a ceasefire. And the ceasefire right now is the most urgent goal. And for this, I would do anything, because all the bloodshed, but all the bloodshed will not lead to anywhere.
All right, that's interesting. Abdulbari Atwan, what do you think of the possibility? I mean, Hamas have said in the past they would be willing to discuss a long-term hudna or ceasefire with Israel. Can Israeli public opinion come round? According to the polls, it seems that increasing numbers are supportive of that.
You know, Sami, what amazed me, to be honest, the Israeli government and the Israeli people, the Israeli officials, the American, the European, lecturing us all the time that Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East. And when 64% of the Israeli public opinion saying that we should have talks with Hamas in order to reach a ceasefire, to reach a compromise, the Israeli government say no, we cannot talk to Hamas. From the day one, actually, the Israeli committed a grave mistake when they boycotted Hamas and they pushed the American and European governments to boycott it. So this Hamas was very willing to talk to the Israeli, to offer a ceasefire, to a truce for 25, maybe 50 years in return of an independent Palestinian state in the West Bank and Gaza Strip. What's the Israeli reaction? What the Israeli, what they did, actually, they said, no, we are not going to talk to a terrorist organization, exactly the way they used to talk about the PLO. Now, the Israeli government is bankrupt, to be honest. This is a bankrupt government. And, you know, they don't have enough support. They would like to show themselves or reflex their muscles in front of the Israeli public opinion to say we are strong, trying to amend the damages inflicted on them after the defeat in Lebanon by hardening their position vis-a-vis the Hamas and vis-a-vis the Palestinian people who are hopeless and helpless, to be honest.
Forgive me for interrupting. What is Hamas's strategy? With Mahmoud Abbas and Fatah, we know of their commitment to a two-state solution. What is Hamas's long-term strategy and goal?
Well, Hamas' long-term strategy is to have a just settlement to the Arab-Israeli conflict. They want a truce. They want an independent state in the West Bank and Gaza Strip as a step to talk further about final status talks like the settlements, like the right of return for the refugees. So we must
Would
give
Hamas
them a
ever
chance.
accept an Israeli state, do you think?
You know, Khalid Mash'al, the chief of the political bureau of Hamas, said clearly Israel is a de facto. We cannot ignore that. But the problem is, you know, the Israeli and the American, they put a gun in Hamas' head after it was democratically elected by the Palestinian people. They said to Hamas, either you recognize Israel, renounce terrorism, or you are not accepted. That's the problem. And they imposed boycott against the Palestinian people for 16 months. They starved Palestinian people, starved Hamas, trying to undermine its government, elected government in West Bank and Gaza Strip. So this kind of arrogance, it wouldn't work, and it does play to the hands of Hamas.
All right, I want to try and get a word in from Gideon Levy before we run out of time. Whatever Hamas's position, however that has been evolving over time, there is something of an issue and a problem in Israel deciding whether it talks to Hamas and what that does to Mahmoud Abbas and to Fatah, isn't there?
Yes, I think I met the other day one senior member of the Israeli government, and he told me if we talk to the Hamas, we kill Abbas. And not that I justify this kind of policy, but that's the way they see it. They think that once they will go and gamble on the Hamas ticket, they are losing the Fatah ticket, and they still believe in the Fatah ticket. Again, I don't justify it. I think that Israel should talk with anybody. And if the Palestinian people had voted Hamas, had elected Hamas, we should respect it. Those were democratic elections and democratic choice. The problem is that we are losing both. We don't have the Hamas and we are losing now the Fatah. This will lead to anywhere.
All right, well, unfortunately, we are running out of time, so we'll have to end it there. Thank our guests before we say goodbye. Gideon Levy from Haaretz Israeli newspaper. Thank you for being with us. Also, Abdelbari Atwan, the editor-in-chief of Al-Quds Al-Arabi newspaper. Thank you for joining us, sir. And thank you so much for joining us here on this edition of Inside Story. As always, we welcome your comments and suggestions. Feel free to email them to us at insidestory@aljazeera.net. For now, it's goodbye.